The cantina smelled like old metal and cheap alcohol. Park sat in the corner booth, his favorite spot where he could watch the door and keep his back to the wall. Old habits from the war. He nursed a glass of whiskey, letting the amber liquid warm his throat as he stared at nothing in particular. 20 years. 20 years since the first contact wars ended. 20 years since he'd hung up his medic uniform and tried to forget. But some memories didn't fade. They just waited in the dark corners of his mind, ready to jump out when he least expected them. The orbital station above New Haven buzzed with activity. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridors outside. The Galactic Council had made this place neutral ground, a meeting point for species that had once tried to kill each other. Hauled cargo now, moving goods from one system to another. It was simple work, quiet work, the kind of work that didn't require him to watch people die. He was about to order another drink when the cantina went silent. Looked up. A massive figure stood in the doorway, blocking most of the light from the corridor beyond. 7 feet tall, covered in crimson scales that gleamed like polished metal. Of the warrior race that had nearly wiped out humanity during the wars. Every patron in the cantina froze. Some humans reached for weapons they no longer carried. A few aliens quickly paid their bills and headed for the exits. They were known for their temper and their pride. Nobody wanted to be around if this one decided to start something. But the wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking directly at. She moved toward his table with the grace of a predator. Her scales were covered in scars, deep grooves that spoke of countless battles. Her eyes were like molten gold, burning with an intensity that made his hand instinctively move toward where his sidearm used to be. But he'd stopped carrying weapons years ago. She stopped at his table. Up close, she was even more imposing. Her claws could tear through steel. Her fangs could crush bone. The insignia on her armor marked her as a council enforcer, one of the elite peacekeepers who hunted down war criminals and terrorists. "Do you remember me?" she asked. Her voice was deep and rough, but she spoke in perfect Korean. That surprised more than anything else. Why would a learn Korean? He studied her face, trying to find something familiar, but all looked similar to human eyes. Red scales, gold eyes, sharp features. He'd seen hundreds of them during the war, usually over the sights of a rifle or through the smoke of a battlefield. "I don't think so," he said carefully. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at him with those burning eyes. "You saved me when no one else would," she said. His heart skipped a beat. His mind raced through possibilities. A mistake, a trap, some kind of honor challenge he didn't understand. "I'm just a cargo hauler," he said. "I don't save people anymore." The reached up and unclasped the armor plate protecting her neck. She tilted her head, exposing the scales beneath. There, running from her jaw to her collarbone, was a scar. Not a battle scar from claws or energy weapons. This was different, crude, surgical. His whiskey glass slipped from his fingers. It hit the table but didn't break. He knew that scar. He'd made that scar. The memory came back like a punch to the gut. 20 years ago, the contested zones, a planet whose name he couldn't even remember anymore. The battle had been brutal. Human forces pushing forward, forces pushing back, artillery raining from the sky, buildings collapsing, people screaming in languages he didn't understand. He'd been moving through the rubble, looking for survivors from his unit when he'd found her. A soldier, young, bleeding out from a shrapnel wound to the neck. Her eyes had been wide with fear and pain. She couldn't have been more than 17 or 18 in human years. Just a kid. Both sides had abandoned that sector. They had pulled back. The humans were regrouping. She'd been left behind to die. Should have left her. Orders were clear. No contact with enemy combatants unless to accept surrender. She was too wounded to surrender. She was dead anyway. But when he'd looked at her, he hadn't seen an enemy. He'd seen someone young and scared and dying. Someone who probably had a family somewhere wondering if she'd come home. He dragged her into a bombed-out building. used his to stop the bleeding, performed field surgery with shaking hands while artillery shook the walls around them. She'd passed out from the pain. He'd worked for 2 hours, knowing that if anyone from either side found them, they'd both die. When he'd finished, he'd left her with basic supplies and disappeared back into the smoke. He'd never told anyone, never reported it. It would have been a court-martial offense at best, treason at worst. He'd assumed she died anyway. The wound was severe. The surgery was crude. He'd given her a chance, but he hadn't expected her to survive. "You lived," said quietly. "I lived," she confirmed. She fastened her armor plate back in place and sat down across from him without asking permission. The chair groaned under her weight. "My name is of the Burning Wing clan. I am an enforcer for the Galactic Council, and I have spent 20 years looking for the human medic who saved my life." "Why?" asked. "Because I owe you a life debt," said. "In culture, if someone saves your life belongs to them until the debt is repaid. For 20 years I have searched every human colony, every military record, every database. I finally found you 3 months ago." Leaned back in his seat. This was insane. He'd saved her life on impulse, a moment of weakness or compassion or stupidity. And now she was here, 2 decades later, talking about debts and obligations. "I don't want anything from you," he said. "That doesn't matter," replied. "The debt exists whether you accept it or not, and now I need your help. I'm not a soldier anymore. I know you haul cargo, you live alone. You drink in this cantina 3 nights a week. You have no family, no close friends, no ties to anyone or anything." His golden eyes seemed to see right through him. "You are running from your past just as I once ran from mine." Wanted to argue, but she was right. He'd spent 20 years running. "What do you want?" he asked. Leaned forward, her voice dropped to a whisper. "There is a rogue faction within the military, extremists who want to restart the war with humanity. They have stolen a bioweapon from old war stockpiles, a weapon designed to target human DNA specifically. If they deploy it, millions of your people will die, and the peace will be shattered forever." Felt cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need help stopping them, and I need someone I can trust absolutely. Someone who proved they could see past species and uniforms and hate. Someone who saved an enemy because it was the right thing to do." His claws scraped against the metal table. "I need you, Park. Will you help me prevent another war?" Looked at her face, at the determination in her eyes, at the desperation she was trying to hide. He thought about his brother Minu, killed in the Battle of Crimson Nebula. He thought about all the people who died in the wars. He thought about the young soldier he'd saved, bleeding and scared in the rubble. "I need to think about it," he said. "You have 12 hours, said, standing up. "After that, I leave for the contested zones, with or without you, but I hope you will come. Because the human who saved me 20 years ago was someone who understood that some things are worth fighting for. I hope he is still in there somewhere." She turned and walked toward the door. The crowd parted to let her through. And then she was gone, leaving alone with his whiskey and his memories, and a choice he'd spent 20 years trying to avoid. The bartender came over. "You okay?" Stared at his glass. "No," he said honestly, "but I don't think I've been okay for a long time." He had 12 hours to decide if he wanted to save the galaxy or keep running from his past. Somehow, he already knew what his answer would be. Didn't sleep that night. He sat in his small apartment staring at the wall, thinking about's words. A bioweapon, millions dead, another war. He'd thought those days were behind him. He'd thought he could forget. But forgetting and moving on were 2 different things. When morning came, he made his decision. He sent a message with coordinates for a meeting. Then he started making calls to people he hadn't spoken to in years. The first call was to. She answered on the 3rd ring. Her face appeared on his screen, older than he remembered but still sharp-eyed. Her hair was cut short, military style, even though she'd left the service 15 years ago. "Park," she said, "I thought you were dead." "Not yet," he replied. "I need your help." "With what?" "Saving the world, maybe the galaxy." Laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." He explained everything. The enforcer, the stolen bioweapon, the extremists who wanted war, listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "You're asking me to work with her," she said finally. "Yes." "They killed hundreds of our people, maybe thousands. You remember the Crimson Nebula?" "My brother died there, I remember." "And you still want to do this?" Thought about the young soldier bleeding in the rubble, about golden eyes and her talk of life debts and honor, about all the people who would die if he did nothing. "If we don't stop this weapon, the war starts again. Everyone we lost, everyone who died for peace, it'll all be for nothing. I can't let that happen." Sighed, "You always were too good for your own sake. Fine, I'm in. But if this betrays us, I'm shooting her first and asking questions later." "Fair enough." The second call was harder. Han had lost both his legs in the final year of the war. A plasma mine had turned a routine patrol into a nightmare. He'd survived, but the man who came back wasn't the same one who'd left. Found him at a salvage yard on the edge of New Haven's industrial sector. Was working on a ship engine, his mechanical legs hissing with hydraulics as he moved. He looked up when approached and his face went cold. "No," said before could speak. "You don't know what I'm going to ask." "Don't care, answer is still no." Went back to his work. "I'm done with that life. I paid my price, lost my legs, lost my friends. I'm not losing anything else. People are going to die if we don't stop this." "People are always dying. That's not my problem anymore." Sat down on a crate near the engine. "You remember the last thing you said to me before the mine went off? You said we were going to make it through the war. You said we'd go home and everything would be okay." His hand stopped moving. "That was before." "Before what?" "Before I realized home doesn't exist anymore. Before I understood that some things break and don't get fixed." He turned to face. His eyes were hard. "Why are you really here?" "Because I need someone I trust. Someone who knows explosives. Someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty. And someone stupid enough to follow you into danger." Shook his head. "You're working with that's what this is about, isn't it?" "Yes." "The same who made these." Slapped his mechanical legs. The sound echoed through the salvage yard. "No, this one is different." "They're all the same." "No," said firmly. "They're not. I learned that 20 years ago when I saved one's life, and she's trying to save ours now." Stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're insane, you know that." "Probably. Are you in or not?" "If I say no, then I do this without you. And maybe I die. And maybe millions of other people die too. And you get to live with knowing you could have stopped it." Cursed in Korean, long and creative. Then he stood up, his mechanical legs whining. "Fine, but I'm bringing enough explosives to blow up whatever we're fighting and if she turns on us. I wouldn't expect anything less." The third call was too. She'd been afield during the war, studying alien species to find their weaknesses. After the peace, she'd turned her skills toward medicine and research. She now worked at a laboratory on New Haven, developing treatments for diseases that affected both humans and aliens. She met at a coffee shop near her lab. She looked tired but smiled when she saw him. "It's been too long." "I know, I'm sorry." "Don't be, we all dealt with the war in our own ways." She sipped her coffee. "So what brings you here? And don't say you just wanted to catch up. I can see it in your eyes, you need something." He explained everything again. The weapon, the extremists, the team he was building. Listened carefully, her scientist's mind processing every detail. "A bioweapon targeting human DNA," she said when he finished. That's sophisticated. They had the technology, but I didn't think they'd actually built one. They did, and now it's in the wrong hands. And you need me because I know biology. That and because you're the person I know. If anyone can figure out how to stop this thing, it's you. Set down her coffee. I left that world behind. I study diseases now so I can cure them. I don't want to go back to studying how to kill things. I'm not asking you to kill. I'm asking you to save lives. By working with a who might be leading you into a trap. She's not. How do you know? Because 20 years ago, I saved her life, and she spent 20 years looking for me to repay the debt. That's not the behavior of someone planning betrayal. Studied his face. You believe in her. I believe in doing the right thing, and stopping this weapon is the right thing. She was quiet for a moment, then she nodded. Okay, I'm in, but I want full access to any data we recover. If I'm going to risk my life, I want to make sure this weapon can never be used again. Deal. 12 hours after had walked out of the cantina, met her at the docking bay. He brought, and with him, looked at the three humans. They looked back at her with varying levels of hostility. His hand rested on his sidearm. Eyes were cold and calculating, looked curious but cautious. This is your team? Asked. This is my team, confirmed. Lieutenant Tactical Officer, Corporal Han, Explosives Expert, Doctor, they're the best at what they do. And they trust you enough to work with a. They trust me enough to give you a chance. Don't waste it. Nodded slowly. I understand. Thank you for coming, all of you. Save the thanks, said. Where's this weapon? Intelligence suggests it's being moved through the contested zones. The extremists are led by War Master, my former commanding officer. His voice hardened. He was the one who ordered me left to die 20 years ago. He considers me a traitor for surviving through human help. So this is personal for you, said. Very personal, but that doesn't change the facts. If deploys this weapon, war becomes inevitable. We have to stop him. How do we even find him? Asked. I have sources. Contacts within the military who are loyal to peace. They've been tracking his movements. Pulled up a holographic map. He's using an old research station in the contested zones as a base. We hit it hard and fast, get the weapon's location, and move before he can regroup. That's suicide, said. The contested zones are full of pirates and mercenaries. Everyone there wants us dead. Yes, agreed. That's why I need all of you. Alone, I'd fail. Together, we have a chance. Looked at his team, crossed her arms but nodded, grumbled but didn't object, adjusted her research pack and gave a small smile. All right, said. We do this together, but we do it my way. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. We get in, get the information, and get out. Everyone comes home. Understood? They all nodded, even. Then let's go save the galaxy. They boarded ship, the Second Chance. It was an old cargo hauler, modified over the years with better engines and shields. Not military grade, but reliable. As they left New Haven's orbital space, couldn't shake the feeling that they were flying towards something that would change everything. For better or worse, there was no turning back now. Stood beside him on the bridge, watching the stars stretch into lines as they jumped to hyperspace. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For giving me a chance to repay my debt. For trusting me when you had every reason not to. Thought about that young soldier in the rubble. About the choice he'd made 20 years ago to save a life instead of take one. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said, even old enemies. His golden eyes glowed softly in the dim light of the bridge. Perhaps especially old enemies. That's how we build peace. Let's hope we get the chance to build it. The ship hurtled through hyperspace toward the contested zones, carrying 5 people who'd once been on different sides of a war, now united against a common threat. Behind them lay safety. Ahead lay danger. but sometimes thought the most important battles weren't the ones you chose. They were the ones you couldn't walk away from. The contested zones looked like a graveyard. Dead ships floated in the darkness, their hulls torn open by weapons fire that had stopped flying years ago. Guided the second chance through the debris field carefully. One wrong move and they'd crash into the wreckage of someone's forgotten war. I forgot how depressing this place is, said from his station. He was monitoring the ship's sensors, watching for anything that might try to kill them. Pirates loved hiding in debris fields. Nothing's changed, added. She was at tactical, her hands moving over the weapon controls. Same corpses, same darkness, same feeling that we're all going to die out here. Cheerful as always, muttered. Stood behind him studying the holographic map. The research station is 3 hours from here. It's hidden in an asteroid cluster. Chose the location well. Easy to defend, hard to approach. How many guards? Asked from her seat. She was going over the data had provided, trying to understand what kind of weapon they were dealing with. Unknown, but is paranoid. He'll have at least 50 soldiers, maybe more. His claws tapped against the console. And they'll be elite troops, commandos trained for exactly this kind of mission. Great, said. 5 of us against 50 trained killers. I love these odds. We're not fighting them head-on, said. We sneak in, find the data we need, and leave before they know we're there. And if they notice us, then we run very fast. The journey through the contested zones was tense. They passed several other ships, most of them pirates or scavengers looking for salvage. A few tried to hail them, ignored the calls. Nothing good came from talking to strangers out here. During the trip, something unexpected happened. The crew started talking to. It started with, the scientist couldn't help herself. She had questions about biology, about their culture, about how they developed their technology. Answered patiently, even seeming to enjoy the conversation. Your healing abilities are remarkable, said, studying the scans had allowed her to take. When performed that surgery on you, your body adapted to the human medical techniques. It's like your cells learned from the trauma and became stronger. That's how survive, explained. We adapt, we overcome. It's why we're such effective warriors. Every battle makes us harder to kill. Except when you get blown up, said from across the bridge. His tone was bitter, but there was curiosity in his eyes. Turned to look at him. I know what happened to you. I read the reports. A plasma mine during the Battle of Iron Ridge. That's right. One of your people put that mine there. Yes, and I'm sorry that happened to you. Laughed harshly. You're sorry, that's it. What else can I say? I can't give you your legs back. I can't change the past. But I can tell you that the soldier who placed that mine probably didn't want to. During the war, we were all following orders, doing what we were told, killing because our leaders said it was necessary. That doesn't make it right. No, agreed. It doesn't. War is never right. It's just sometimes necessary. And sometimes it's not, but we fight anyway because we don't know how to stop. Was quiet after that, but noticed he stopped reaching for his weapon every time moved. Was harder to crack. She watched like a hawk looking for any sign of betrayal, but during a meal break something shifted. They were eating in the ship's small galley, had brought her own food, strange rations that smelled like burnt metal and spices. Watched her eat with obvious suspicion. Why did you really come to us? Asked suddenly. You're a council enforcer, you have resources, why bring humans into this? Set down her food. Because I don't know who to trust in the military, has supporters everywhere. If I'd gone through official channels, he would have known I was coming. He might have moved the weapon or deployed it early. So we're expendable. No, you're trustworthy. Saved my life when he had no reason to. That tells me something about his character. And people of good character choose friends of good character. Looked around the table. I believe you're here because you want to stop a war, same as me. That makes us allies. We're not friends, said. No, not yet, but perhaps someday we could be, if we survive this. Later that evening, found standing in the cargo bay. She was practicing combat forms, her movements fluid and deadly. Each strike could crush bone. Each kick could shatter steel. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She stopped and turned to face him. "I keep thinking about what comes next. If we fail, millions die. If we succeed, I'll have to kill my former teacher, the one who trained me to be a warrior. He tried to kill you first." "That doesn't make it easier." Sat down on a cargo crate. Her scales seemed to dim in the low light. "I was supposed to be like him, strong, ruthless, willing to do anything for victory. But then you saved me, and I couldn't understand it. Why would an enemy show mercy?" "Because you weren't really my enemy. You were just someone caught in the same nightmare I was." That moment changed everything for me. I started questioning orders, questioning the war. When peace came, I was relieved instead of angry like so many of my people. Looked at her clawed hands. "Calls me weak, corrupted by human sentiment. Maybe he's right." "He's not," said firmly. "Choosing peace doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave. It's easy to fight. It's hard to stop fighting and build something better." Smiled slightly. "You sound like a teacher." "I sound like someone who's tired of watching people die." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, then spoke again. "When this is over, if we survive, what will you do?" Thought about it. "I don't know. Go back to hauling cargo, I guess. Try to forget again. Or you could help me build something new. The Council wants to create a joint task force, humans and working together to prevent future conflicts. They asked me to lead it." His golden eyes met his. "I'd like you to be my second in command." "Why me?" "Because you understand what I'm trying to do. You saw past species and uniforms 20 years ago. You can do it again, and people will follow you. Your crew trusted you enough to come on this mission. Others will trust you too." "I'll think about it," said, but part of him already knew the answer. 3 hours later, they reached the asteroid cluster. The research station was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid, its docking bay disguised as a natural crater. Clever. If you didn't know what you were looking for, you'd fly right past it. "Picking up patrol ships," reported. 3 light fighters making rounds. "Can we avoid them?" asked. "Maybe, but we'd have to shut down all power and drift through the field. One collision and we're dead." Studied her tactical display. "There's another option. We could hack their sensor net, make ourselves invisible to their scanners." "Can you do that?" asked. "Probably. Give me 20 minutes. She worked quickly, her fingers flying over the controls. Helped, using her knowledge of technology to find weaknesses in their security. Together, they managed to create a blind spot in the sensor network. "We're ghosts," announced, "but it won't last forever. We have maybe an hour before their systems reset." "Then we move now," said. They approached the station carefully. The second chance slipped through the asteroid field like a shadow, invisible to the patrol ships. They docked in a maintenance bay, away from the main hangar. The team geared up quickly. Weapons checked, armor sealed, objectives clear. Get the data on the weapon's location, don't get caught. They moved through the station's corridors like professionals. Took point, her tactical instincts guiding them past security cameras and guard patrols. Knew the layout from her time in the military. Together, they made a good team. They found the command center deep inside the station. It was guarded by automated turrets and locked behind heavy doors. Planted shaped charges on the hinges while worked on bypassing the electronic locks. "Got it," whispered. The doors hissed open. Inside, they found what they needed. Computer terminals filled with data, files on the bioweapon, transport schedules, and something worse. "This isn't just about one weapon," said, her face pale as she read the screens. "Has 3 bioweapons, and he's planning to deploy them simultaneously on 3 different human colonies. Millions will die in the first wave. Billions once panic spreads." Ware demanded. Pulled up the data. He's moving them to a frontier world. Prime. There's a festival happening in 5 days. When the crowds gather, he'll stage a false flag attack. Make it look like humans struck first. Then he deploys his weapons in retaliation. We need this data, said. All of it. They were downloading the files when alarms started blaring. They found us, said. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Lots of them. The team grabbed the data drives and ran. The station came alive with enemies. Commandos poured from every door. Energy weapons lit up the corridors. Team fired back, fighting their way toward the docking bay. Tossed grenades behind them, creating explosions that bought them precious seconds. Laid down covering fire while ran with the data. Fought like a demon, her claws tearing through enemies who got too close. They reached the docking bay. The second chance was still there, engines warming up. They ran for it. A massive blocked their path. He was even bigger than, covered in battle scars. Commander, second in command. Traitor, he snarled at, you'll die here with your human pets. Roared and charged him. They clashed in a fury of claws and strength. The fight was brutal and fast, was good but was bigger and stronger. Aimed his weapon, but they were moving too fast. He might hit instead. Then did something crazy. He ran toward the fight, a detonator in his hand. Get clear, he shouted. Understood, move. She broke away from and ran, triggered the charges he'd been secretly planting throughout the docking bay. The explosions tore through the structure. Metal screamed. Walls collapsed. Disappeared in the blast, but so did. No, screamed. He ran back into the smoke and fire. He found buried under debris, his mechanical legs crushed, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Stupid human heroics, muttered, dragging him free. Appeared beside him. Together they carried to the ship, provided covering fire, got the engines running. They blasted out of the docking bay as it collapsed behind them. Patrol ships gave chase, but hacking had bought them enough time. They jumped to hyperspace just as enemy fire started hitting their shields. In the ship's medical bay, worked on. The wounds were bad but not fatal. The man was tough. Why did you do that? Asked as he sealed a wound. Because she came back for me, said quietly, looking at. When the station started exploding, she could have left me, but she came back, just like you did for her 20 years ago. Stood in the doorway. I told you, I don't leave people behind. That's a human trait I've learned to appreciate. Managed a weak smile. Guess you're not so bad for a... They had the data. They knew where was going. But the real fight was still ahead, and they had less than 5 days to stop 3 bioweapons from killing millions. The second chance raced toward Prime, carrying 5 battered warriors who refused to let the galaxy burn, not without a fight. The second chance limped through space with damaged engines and a crew that was running on pure determination, was stable but still recovering. The rest of them took turns sleeping and monitoring the ship systems. 5 days to reach Prime seemed like plenty of time until the port engine started failing. How bad is it? Asked who was buried in the engine compartment. Bad. The damage from the station firefight cracked the plasma conduits. We're losing fuel efficiency. At this rate, we'll reach Prime in 8 days, not 5. We don't have 8 days. I know that, snapped. But unless you can magically fix these engines, we're not getting there faster. Studied the navigation charts. There's another way, the Veil Nebula. It's a shortcut through this sector. Everyone stopped what they were doing. The Veil Nebula is a death trap, said. Gravitational anomalies, radiation storms. Both militaries avoid it for good reason. Yes, agreed. Which is exactly why it's safe from patrols, and if we survive the crossing, we cut 3 days off our journey. We'd reach Prime with time to spare. If we survive, emphasized from his medical bed, big if. Looked at the charts. The Veil Nebula was a swirling mass of gas and energy, beautiful and deadly. Ships that entered rarely came out. The ones that did were usually heavily damaged. But what choice did they have? "We're going through," he decided. "Are you crazy?" demanded. "Probably, but we're not letting millions die because we were too afraid to take a risk." Turn 2. You know the nebula. "I've studied it, never crossed it, but I know the theory." "Theory doesn't keep us alive." "No, but it's better than nothing." They changed course toward the Veil Nebula. As they approached, the view from the bridge became spectacular. Purple and blue gases swirled in impossible patterns. Lightning storms flashed inside the clouds. It looked like something from a dream or a nightmare. "Radiation levels increasing," reported. "Nothing dangerous yet, but that'll change once we're inside." "Everyone seal your suits," ordered. "If the ship's shielding fails, the suits might buy us a few extra minutes." They entered the nebula. Immediately, the ship started shaking. Gravitational waves pulled them in different directions. The navigation systems went haywire. Outside the windows, the gas clouds pressed close, turning the view into a swirling chaos of color. "I can't get a clear sensor reading," said. "The interference is too strong." "Navigate by instinct," suggested. "Feel the ship. Let it tell you where to go." "That's not how starships work," argued. "It's how pilots navigate dangerous space. Trust your connection to the vessel." Looked skeptical but tried. She closed her eyes and felt the controls. The ship responded, turning and diving through the nebula's currents. It was working. For an hour they made good progress. Then the radiation storms hit. The ship's shields lit up as energy waves washed over them. Alarms blared. The lights flickered. "Shields at 60%, called out. "Another storm like that and we're done." "There," pointed at the navigation display. "A calm pocket, head there." They made it to the safe zone just as another storm rolled through. The second chance shuddered but held together. They waited for the storm to pass, using the time to make repairs. That's when the port engine died completely. "We're not going anywhere," announced. "The plasma conduit is completely fried. We need to replace it." "Do we have spare parts?" asked. "Some, but they'll need to be installed from outside the ship, in the middle of a radioactive nebula." Everyone looked at. "Biology can handle short exposure to radiation," said slowly, "but this level would still be dangerous." "How dangerous?" asked. "You'd have maybe 20 minutes before serious damage occurs. 40 minutes before it becomes fatal." "How long to install the parts?" Checked her notes. 30 minutes if everything goes perfectly, maybe longer if there are complications. Stood up, "Then I'll do it." "That's suicide," said. "It's necessary. You need the engines fixed. I'm the only one who can survive outside long enough to do it." "I'll go with you," said. "You'll die in 10 minutes in that radiation." "Then I'll help for 9 minutes and come back inside." Studied his face. "Why?" "Because you're not doing this alone. And because if something goes wrong, you'll need someone to pull you back inside." They suited up together, gave them detailed instructions on what needed to be done, loaded up with radiation meds that might buy her extra time. They stepped out into the nebula. It was beautiful and terrifying. The gas clouds swirled around them, lit from within by lightning and radiation. Suit immediately started warning him about exposure levels. They worked quickly. His clawed hands were perfect for the delicate work of removing the damaged conduit and installing the new one. Helped where he could, holding tools and providing extra hands. 8 minutes in, suit alarms became urgent. His voice crackled over the radio. "You need to come inside now." "Almost done," he said. "Now." He went back inside, his skin already feeling warm from radiation exposure. Through the window, he watched continue working alone. 20 minutes passed. The engine wasn't fixed yet. 30 minutes, was moving slower now, her hands shook. "Come back," said over the radio. We'll find another way. Almost there, her voice was weak. 35 minutes. She locked the final connection into place. The engine roared to life, but didn't move. She just floated there, her suit still tethered to the ship. "Get her inside," shouted. They pulled her in through the airlock. When they removed her helmet, her scales had lost their color. She was barely conscious. "Radiation poisoning," said, scanning her. "Severe, she's dying." "No," said, "not after everything." He dragged to the medical bay, set up IV lines, pumped her full of every medication they had. It wasn't enough. Her body was shutting down. In desperation, ran more scans. "Wait, look at this. Her cells are trying to adapt, just like they did 20 years ago when you saved her. But the radiation damage is too severe. The adaptation can't keep up." "What if we help it?" asked. "What do you mean?" "You said her body learns from trauma. What if we trigger a healing response? Put her in a medical coma, reduce her body's energy needs, let all her resources go toward adapting." "That's actually brilliant. It might work." They prepared the procedure, stayed with as they put her under. Her golden eyes opened one last time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not leaving me behind." "Never," he promised. She fell into the coma, monitored her vital signs carefully. For hours it was unclear if she'd survive. Then slowly, remarkably, her body began to heal. The radiation damage reversed. Her scales regained their color. "She's going to make it," said, sounding amazed. "She's actually adapting to the radiation. In a few days she'll be immune to it." Sat down, exhausted and relieved. "Biology is incredible." "No," corrected. "What's incredible is that she trusted you enough to risk her life for the mission, and that you trusted her enough to let her do it." The second chance continued through the Veil Nebula. With both engines working, they made good time. 2 days later, they emerged on the other side, battered but alive. Prime was 3 days away. Woke up on the second day after the nebula. She was weak but recovering fast, was there when her eyes opened. "Did we make it?" she asked. "We made it. You saved us. Again." "I'm keeping count. I think you've saved me 3 times now. I'm falling behind on my debt." "There's no debt," said firmly. "We're even, we're partners. We save each other. That's how this works." Smiled. "Partners, I like that." Over the next 2 days, they planned their assault on Prime. Would be there, along with the 3 bioweapons. They needed to stop him before the festival, before millions died. The team gathered on the bridge. Everyone was battered and exhausted, but their determination burned bright. "This is it," said. "Once we land on Prime, there's no turning back. We'll know we're coming. He'll throw everything he has at us." "Let him," said, checking his weapons. His injuries had healed enough for him to fight. "I've got some explosives with his name on them." "We'll need a plan," added. "Rushing in gets us killed." Pulled up a map of Prime's capital city. "The festival takes place in the central plaza. We'll hide the weapons somewhere nearby, ready to deploy the moment his false flag attack happens." "We split up," suggested. 3 weapons, 3 teams. We locate and neutralize each one simultaneously." "But we only have 5 people," pointed out. "Then we get help," said. "I have contacts on Prime, council enforcers who are loyal to peace. They'll assist us once they see the evidence we recovered." "You're sure we can trust them?" asked. "I trust them with my life, just as I trust all of you." It was the first time had said something like that. The team exchanged glances. Somewhere over the past days, they'd stopped being enemies forced together by necessity. They'd become something else. A team, maybe even friends. "All right," said. "We land on Prime tomorrow, we find we stop the weapons, and we save the galaxy." "No pressure," joked. But they all knew the truth. Failure meant war. Success meant peace. And they were the only ones standing between those 2 futures. The second chance entered orbit around Prime. Below them, A beautiful world with violet skies and crystalline cities waited. Somewhere down there, War Master was preparing to destroy everything. But and his team were ready. They'd crossed impossible distances, survived deadly hazards, and learned to trust each other across species lines. Now it was time to finish what they'd started. The ship began its descent toward the capital city. The festival would begin in 24 hours. They had one day to save millions of lives. One day to prove that peace was worth fighting for. Prime was beautiful. The capital city spread across rolling hills, its buildings made of some kind of crystal that caught the violet light of the twin suns. Families walked the streets, preparing for the festival. Children played in parks. Vendors set up stalls selling food and crafts. It looked peaceful and alive. Watched from a rooftop overlooking the central plaza. Tomorrow, this place would be filled with millions celebrating their culture and history. If succeeded, they'd all be dead by sunset. "Contacts incoming," said, appearing beside him. 3 in-council enforcer armor approached across the rooftop. They moved with military precision, but their body language was cautious, not hostile. "These are my people," explained. "Enforcer, enforcer, enforcer." They've been watching for weeks, waiting for proof of his plans. The lead enforcer nodded too. "You're the human who saved 20 years ago." "I am." "She speaks highly of you, says you're trustworthy." His golden eyes studied him carefully. "I hope she's right, because what you're asking is dangerous. If we move against without solid proof, we could start a civil war among the—" "We have proof," said, holding up the data drives. "Everything, his plans, his weapons, his false flag attack, it's all here." Took the drives and reviewed the data on a portable terminal. His expression darkened with each file he opened. "This is worse than we thought. 3 weapons. Simultaneous deployment. He's trying to force the Council's hand." "Can you stop him?" asked. "With this evidence, yes. We can arrest and his followers, but we need to find the weapons first. If even one deploys, the damage is done." "We have a plan," said. He spread out a map of the city. Based on the data is using 3 different locations: an old military bunker beneath the city, a warehouse in the industrial district, and a transport ship in the spaceport. We hit all 3 simultaneously, disable the weapons, and capture. "You'll need more than 5 people for this," rumbled. He was a massive, even bigger than. "That's why we need your help. Split your forces between the warehouse and the spaceport. We'll handle the bunker." "Why the bunker?" asked. She was smaller than the other but moved with deadly grace. "Because that's where we'll be," said. "I know him. He'll want to personally oversee the main weapon. His ego demands it." Nodded slowly. "All right, we move at dawn, before the festival begins. Hit him before he's ready." They spent the night preparing. Checked weapons and equipment. Went over tactical plans. Prepared explosives for breaching the bunker. Studied the bioweapon designs, looking for ways to safely neutralize them. Found on the rooftop again in the early morning hours. The city was quiet, the calm before the storm. "Can't sleep?" she asked. "Too much to think about. We've done everything we can. Now we trust in our preparation." Looked at her. "I keep thinking about that day 20 years ago, when I found you in the rubble. I had no idea that decision would lead to all of this." "Do you regret it?" "No, I regret the war. I regret all the people who died. But saving you, that was the best decision I made in that whole nightmare." Scales seemed to glow softly in the dawn light. "When this is over, if we survive, I want to build something better. A galaxy where humans and work together, where our children don't grow up hating each other." "Children?" raised an eyebrow. "Not literally, I mean future generations." She paused. "Unless you want literal children, I mean not with me specifically. That would be biologically impossible. I'm just saying in general." Laughed. It was the first time he'd laughed in days. "I know what you meant, and yes, let's survive first. Then we can build something better." Dawn broke over Prime. The team assembled at their positions. Enforcers moved toward the warehouse and spaceport. Team approached the military bunker. The entrance was hidden in the old district, disguised as a maintenance tunnel. Bypassed the security lock. They descended into darkness. The bunker was a maze of corridors and chambers, built during the war and forgotten after peace. Had chosen well. Down here, he could work without observation. They moved quietly through the tunnels. Led the way, her knowledge of military architecture guiding them. They encountered guards, but tactical skills and combat prowess made quick work of them. In the deepest chamber, they found it. The bioweapon sat in the center of the room, a massive device covered in tubes and displays. It looked like a bomb, and a laboratory had merged into something obscene. And standing beside it was War Master. He was ancient his scales gray with age and covered in the scars of 100 battles. His eyes burned with cold intelligence and absolute conviction. He said, his voice like grinding stone, "I knew you'd come. The traitor returns to her homeland." "I'm not a traitor," said. "I'm trying to save our people from your madness." "Madness?" laughed. "I'm saving them from weakness, from the poison of peace that makes us soft. We are warriors. We are meant to conquer, not negotiate." "We're meant to survive," countered. "And another war will destroy us as surely as it destroys humanity." "Better destruction with honor than survival with shame." Activated the weapons control console. "I gave you a chance 20 years ago. I left you on that battlefield to die with honor, but you survived, corrupted by human sentiment. And now you bring these creatures into our sacred halls." "These creatures are my friends," said. "They're better warriors than half your commandos, and better people than you'll ever be." His eyes narrowed. "Then you can die with them." He triggered something on the console. Alarms blared. Heavy doors slammed shut, trapping them in the chamber. "The weapon deploys in 10 minutes, announced. "Long enough for me to kill you, long enough for you to watch everything you love burn." Roared and charged him. They clashed in a fury of claws and strength. Was older but incredibly powerful. Each blow could shatter stone. They fought like gods of war, primal and brutal. The rest of the team tried to reach the weapon, but automated defenses activated. Turrets emerged from the walls. Combat drones dropped from the ceiling. "Go for the weapon," shouted. "We'll handle the defenses." And laid down covering fire. Ran for the weapons control console. Fought beside them, taking down drones with precise shots. 8 minutes left. And's battle intensified. She was faster, but he was stronger. He landed a devastating blow that sent her crashing into a wall. She struggled to rise. "You were always weak," said, advancing on her. "Even when I trained you, too soft, too compassionate. Those are human failings, not virtues." "No," gasped, forcing herself up. "They're the best parts of both our species, and you're too blind to see it." 7 minutes. Reached the console. Her fingers flew over the controls, trying to understand the weapon systems. "It's encrypted. I need more time." "We don't have time," shouted. 6 minutes. Raised his claws for a killing blow on, didn't think. He just acted. He raised his weapon and fired. The shot caught in the shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to stop him. The old warrior roared in pain and fury. "You dare," snarled. "You have no honor." "Honor doesn't mean letting people die when you can save them," said, standing beside. "I learned that 20 years ago, and I'll keep remembering it until the day I die." 5 minutes. Desperate and wounded, did something terrible. He triggered the manual override. The weapon's launch sequence couldn't be stopped now. It would deploy regardless of what they did to the console. "Fools," laughed. "You've lost. The weapon launches in 5 minutes. Millions will die, and the war begins anew." 4 minutes. Studied the weapon frantically. There's only one way to stop it. Someone has to interface directly with the core, reset the targeting manually. but the radiation levels inside are lethal. Everyone looked at each other, then at. "I'll do it," she said. "No," protested. "You just recovered from the nebula. More radiation could kill you." "My body adapted to radiation. I have the best chance of survival," moved toward the weapon. "And if I die, at least it's for something that matters." 3 minutes. She tore open the weapon's core chamber. Inside, toxic energy swirled in patterns that hurt to look at. The radiation levels were off the scale. Reached inside, her claws interfacing with the controls. Immediately, her scales began to darken. The toxins were attacking her cellular structure. "Stop," shouted. Almost there, her voice was strained. 2 minutes. Seeing his plan failing, made one last desperate move. He activated a self-destruct sequence on the bunker itself. If he couldn't deploy the weapon, he'd bury them all. 30 seconds until the bunker collapses, warned. 1 minute on the weapon, 30 seconds on the bunker. His hands shook as she worked. The toxins were overwhelming her system, but she kept going, because millions of lives depended on it. 20 seconds on the bunker, 40 seconds on the weapon. "Done," shouted. She pulled her hands from the core. The weapon powered down, its launch sequence canceled. But the bunker was collapsing. "Run," grabbed, she could barely stand. The toxins had ravaged her body. The team ran for the exit. Behind them, stood beside his dead weapon, laughing maniacally as the ceiling began to fall. They made it to the stairs, tossed grenades behind them, collapsing the passage and ceiling in his tomb. They ran up and up, the whole structure shaking. They burst out of the maintenance tunnel just as the bunker imploded. The ground shook. Buildings nearby cracked, but the collapse was contained to the old military district. The city was safe. Collapsed in his arms. Her scales had turned almost black from the toxins. Her breathing was shallow. "No," said, "not after everything, stay with me." Scanned her urgently. The toxins are attacking her system faster than she can adapt. She's dying. There has to be something we can do. Wait, studied the scans more carefully. Her body is trying to adapt, just like before, but it needs time. If we can put her in a healing coma, reduce her metabolic rate, her natural adaptation might save her. They rushed to the second chance, set up the medical bay, put into the deepest coma the equipment could manage. For 12 hours sat beside her, holding her hand, watching the monitors, praying to gods he didn't believe in. Slowly, impossibly, her body began to heal. The black faded from her scales, her breathing steadied. The toxins that should have killed her were instead making her stronger. "She's going to survive," said, sounding amazed. "Not only survive, she's adapting. In a few days, she'll be immune to these toxins." Exhaled a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "Are incredible." "So are humans," replied. "Only a human would sit by an alien's bedside for 12 hours straight. Only a human would care that much about someone from a species we were at war with." News came from the city, and his enforcers had successfully neutralized the other two weapons. Conspirators were arrested. The evidence was being broadcast across the galaxy. The plot had failed. The festival went ahead as planned. Millions of celebrated, never knowing how close they'd come to death. 3 days later, woke up. Was there, as he'd been since they brought her aboard. Her golden eyes opened and found his. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. "We won. You saved millions, maybe billions." "Good," she tried to smile. "Do you remember me?" Squeezed her hand gently. "Always. You're the soldier I saved 20 years ago, the enforcer who came looking for me, the friend who risked everything to prevent a war. How could I forget?" "I was going to say the same about you. You saved me twice now." "3 times, actually, but who's counting?" Laughed, then winced. "Everything hurts. You interfaced with a toxic bioweapon. Everything should hurt." "Worth it." Over the next week, recovered. The team stayed on Prime, giving testimony to the council, helping with the investigation. The galaxy learned the truth about its plot. The reaction was swift and decisive. Both humans and were horrified by how close they'd come to war. The council, shaken by the near disaster, voted to create a permanent joint task force. Humans and working together to prevent future conflicts. They offered command too. She accepted on one condition, would be her co-commander. "I can't do this alone," she said. "I need someone who understands what we're building, someone who proved that old enemies can become new friends." Looked at his team. They'd all been changed by this mission. They'd learned to trust, to work together, to see past old hatreds. "What do you think?" he asked them. "Someone needs to keep you two from getting killed," said with a slight smile. "And I've got nowhere better to be," added. "Plus, blowing up bad guys never gets old." "The research opportunities alone are worth it," said. "Think of what we can learn working with multiple species." Turn back to, "Looks like you've got yourself a team." They stood on the balcony of the council building, looking out over Prime. The city sparkled in the violet light. Children played in the streets below. Humans and walked together, no longer enemies but neighbors. "Do you think this will last?" asked. "The peace." "As long as people remember," said. "Remember what war costs. Remember that we're all just people trying to survive in this galaxy. Remember that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is save an enemy's life." Touched the scar on her neck, the one had given her when he saved her life, the one that had brought them to this moment. "Some scars are worth keeping," she said. "They remind us of who we were and who we can become." The second chance, repaired and upgraded, sat in the spaceport below. Soon it would launch again, carrying its crew toward new challenges. But now they wouldn't be alone. Now they'd have each other. Extended his hand, too. She took it, her clawed hand gentle in his. "Partners?" he asked. "Partners," she agreed, "today and always." They stood together, human and watching the sun set over a galaxy that was finally learning to choose peace over war. It wouldn't be easy. There would be more challenges, more threats, more people like who wanted to tear it all down. But they'd face those challenges together, because that was the lesson they'd learned, the lesson that could save the galaxy. Old enemies could become new friends, and together they could build something worth fighting for. Not war, not conquest, but peace, understanding, a future where children of all species could grow up without fear. That was worth any sacrifice, worth any scar. As the stars came out above Prime and stood side by side, ready for whatever came next, the war was over. The peace was fragile, but they would protect it with everything they had. Because someone had to, and they'd proven they were the right people for the job. The second chance launched at dawn the next day. On board were 5 people who'd started as enemies and strangers but had become something more. A team, a family. And as they jumped to hyperspace, heading toward their next mission, they carried with them the most human thing of all. Hope. Hope that the galaxy could be better, that peace was possible, that old wounds could heal. It was enough. For now it was enough. The end.